I was the kind of student anyone wouldn't really notice in college. I wasn't in sports, I didn't go to big social events, and I definitely wasn't popular. Most weekends, I just killed time with my two closest friends, Mason and Eli. We weren't saints or anything. We drank, we joked around, but we mostly stayed out of the spotlight. That being said, anytime there was even a whisper about a house party nearby, we were the first to jump at it. It didn't matter if it was some random person's apartment or a rundown house at the edge of town. Parties were a way to break up the monotony, and we were not about to pass them up. One Friday night, Eli said a girl he'd been chatting with online told him about a gathering just outside campus. He didn't know much, just that it wasn't hosted by a frat and that it was different. Mason joked that it sounded like one of those weird, candlelit poetry things instead of a real party. Eli swore it would be fun, and since none of us had better plans, we all piled into Mason's car and went. From the outside, the house looked ordinary. Too ordinary. Every other party house I'd been to usually had music thumping so loud you could hear it from down the street, but this place was quiet. Lights were on, but not the flickering, colored ones you'd expect. Just plain, bright lights spilling out of every window. We parked a little ways down, cracked open a few beers we'd brought, and worked up the courage to go in. When we finally stepped inside, I immediately felt off. The people there weren't your usual sloppy, half-drunk students. They were dressed almost formally, like they were going to some kind of banquet. No loud music, no wild energy. Just soft, slow songs playing without any lyrics, echoing through the hall. I kept telling myself maybe it was just a different type of party. Maybe we'd stumbled into some artsy thing. But the longer I stood there, the more I realized how out of place we looked. That's when three girls approached us. They were all smiles, friendly, and they offered us drinks from a sleek-looking glass bottle. I didn't want to seem lame, so I took a sip, even though something about the liquid tasted strange. Bitter in a way I couldn't put my finger on. As the night went on, I noticed something else. People were watching us. Not casually either. I'd catch someone's eyes locked on me, and the second I looked back, they'd glance away like nothing happened. I brushed it off at first, until I noticed something even stranger. One of the girls Mason had been talking to leaned close to him, and that's when I spotted it. A faint, jagged line on her collarbone. It wasn't makeup, it wasn't a tattoo, it almost looked burned into her skin. When I looked harder, I realized it wasn't just her. A man walking by had the same exact line, only darker. Another girl across the room too. The same shape, the same mark. I wanted to point it out to my friends, but before I could, Mason wandered off upstairs with his girl. A few minutes later, Eli disappeared with his two. That left me standing there, unease crawling up my spine. I decided to clear my head in the bathroom. On my way there, a tall guy stepped out of the hall, dressed in all white. He brushed past me without a word, but as he turned, I saw it, the mark. Bold, carved across his neck this time. I don't know what came over me, but I asked him what it meant. He froze, stared at me for a long second, then simply asked,
Who told you to come here?
His voice was calm but heavy, like I wasn't supposed to be there at all. I couldn't even answer. I just pushed past him and locked myself in the bathroom, my heart pounding. When I finally came out, everything looked different. The people weren't just glancing anymore. They were watching me openly, like I was the only one in the room. And when I scanned the crowd, I realized almost every single person there had the same jagged mark somewhere on their skin. I panicked and ran upstairs, desperate to find Mason and Eli. I found them in the hallway, smiling like nothing was wrong. But then I saw it, both of them had marks now. Fresh, red, burned across their necks. I begged them to leave, but Mason laughed and said it was just some dumb prank. Eli brushed me off, insisting we'd ruin the night if we moved out. They didn't understand. They couldn't. That's when another figure appeared at the end of the hall, blocking the stairs. His neck, his arms, even his face, covered in marks. Dozens of them. I didn't think, I just grabbed Mason and Eli, forcing them downstairs. We shoved our way through the staring crowd, out the front door and into the night. Nobody tried to stop us. They just watched, silent, unmoving. When we finally reached the car, my hands were shaking so bad I could barely open the door. Mason and Eli were furious, demanding to go back, but I drove us home anyway. The next morning, both of them swore they didn't remember half the night. They couldn't explain the marks either. And the strangest part, by the end of the week, the red lines had faded completely from their skin, like they were never there at all. I don't know what kind of party that really was. And honestly, I don't want to know. All I can say is, I'll never step foot in a stranger's house party again.